So now we're going to learn a little HTML terminology, and I want you to be familiar with the vocabulary we use to talk about web pages. And I also just want to make some distinctions between some of the terms. So the first term that you absolutely need to know about are elements and tags. And people use these terms interchangeably, but here is the difference. Just to be specific, to be as specific as possible. I feel like Sylvester the cat. Like I just can't say specific. To be as specific as possible. Elements and tags, right? Elements are the elements, like the HTML element, the head element, the meta element, the title element, the body element. Those are the elements we've learned about. The tags have the little brackets around them, and those are brackets, by the way, those little angle brackets right there. So those are tags when they have the brackets around them. And then we have opening and closing tags. So you can see here there's the opening tag, and then this is the closing tag. It has that / right there. So here's the opening of HTML, closing of HTML. Everything between these two tags is the HTML, right? And then the opening of the body and the closing of the body. And everything between the opening and closing of body, when we put code right here, that will be, included in the body of the web page. So that's the opening and closing tags. And then there are some self-closing tags. So the meta tag is a self-closing tag. Here are the rest of the self-closing tags, right? So you could just come back and reference this later. But those tags right there are also self-closing. So you don't have an opening and closing tag with a self-closing tag. You just have the tag. That's it. And you no longer even need to include this /. So CodePen.io has not updated their code, and they're including the /. That's old school. That's XML, strict regulations and all that stuff. You don't need that anymore. They got rid of that with HTML5. You can see that when you look at MDN. If you look at Meta, they no longer have the closing tag right there. Right? So there's no closing tag right here because MDN is up to date. CodePen.io, when I wrote that code there with Emmet, it put it in. That's old school. You don't need that anymore. So this is a self-closing tag right there. It's just the tag. That's it. No ending trailing /. And you can see that in WebStorm. When I generate this code in WebStorm, there's no trailing / right there. So here we have an opening tag, a closing tag, an opening tag, a closing tag, an opening body, a closing body, and then a self-closing tag right here, and there's no / needed. It's just the tag by itself, but it's still known as a self-closing tag. So that's self-closing. The next term you need to know is about nesting tags. So we're nesting tags. So here is the outer tag, and we have nested the head and the body within HTML, right? So we've nested the head tag and the body tag within the HTML tag. And then inside the head tag, we have nested the meta tag and the title tag. So those are both nested. So this is nesting tags. That's what it means to nest tags. You're putting things inside other things. And, that's how the body works. Put things inside the body. Okay, that's nesting tags. And when we nest tags, we talk about like the parent and child elements. So the child elements of HTML are the head and the body. The parent element of the body is the HTML tag, right? So we talk about parents and child. We'll also say ancestors and descendants, right? So the descendants of HTML are the head. The immediate descendants are the head and the body. And then the ancestor of the body tag, right, is the HTML tag. We'll also talk about siblings. So the siblings of the head tag, the sibling of the head tag is the body tag, right? So that'd be the sibling. So just some terminology we use to talk about web pages. And we already learned or heard that root is the root element, the root tag of the document. So this is the root element of an HTML document. It's the HTML tag. So that's the root element. And you can see that right here in the MDN documentation. It says HTML element represents the root of an HTML document. All other elements must be descendants of this element. So you can see how that's working. So here are some of the terms that are synonymous when we talk about web pages. We could say a web page, an HTML document, an HTML page, a document, right? So we use all those terms interchangeably to talk about a web page. So you could say any of those. We'll talk about an element or a tag. Just generally, people will say element or tag and use those interchangeably as synonyms. They'll say parent, ancestor, right? Or child, descendant. Those are synonyms. So those are some of the terms which you need to know to understand web pages. When we're talking about web pages, it'll really help you to know those terms.